Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 2020 war movie Quo Vadis, Aida.
te položaje. I to je sve što se može u ovom trenutku.
Hey, well, I hope that's not true. I hope at least some of my reviews are unique and they're not all exactly the same. I thought Quo Vadis, Aida was an incredible movie. I thought the acting, especially from the woman who plays Aida, was absolutely spectacular. She did a phenomenal job. I think being from the United States, I am somewhat ignorant when it comes to world situations like this. I was around when this conflict in Bosnia happened. I was very, very young. There's the conflict that's going on right now in Israel and Lebanon. There's, of course, the conflict with Ukraine and Russia. And although, I know there's a conflict going on, I think that a lot of the nitty-gritty details and the atrocities that are going on, I either don't bother to research and try to understand, or since I'm so far away from what's happening, it just doesn't impact me, so I don't care to look. I don't care to do the research. And with the atrocities that happened in this movie, I didn't realize that kind of stuff happened since the Holocaust. I didn't realize that this kind of stuff was still going on. Now, I know I've been following the Israel-Lebanon conflict quite a bit, and I know that there's bad actors on both sides, and that these type of incidences are probably happening, but you don't want to actually believe stuff like this still happens, and these type of war crimes happen. You don't want to believe that it actually takes place. You want to believe that everyone plays by the rules and everyone does what they're supposed to do, but it doesn't always happen, and this movie was very hard for me to watch. It affected me in an emotional way because honestly, I really thought that the people in the town were going to all get away. I didn't realize that there was going to be the mass murders and the mass killings that actually happened. A part of me throughout the entire movie thought that maybe Aida was kind of overreacting, and maybe it was because her family was involved and because she was so worried about her family that she was just thinking that the worst was going to happen and it actually wasn't going to happen. And a part of me really thought that they were going to get away and that they were going to be able to continue their family and their lives, not the way they were, obviously, because they're being torn from their homes, but rebuild in some way and at least have each other at the end of the movie. And I was just really sad with the actual outcome that happened. Clearly, I don't know anything about this Bosnian War or this conflict that happened in, I think it's Srebrenica, which is the town in Bosnia which this takes place. I was really young, like I said, and I don't generally go back and research these type of incidences that happen unless I see them in a movie, and then I have to just trust that the movie is accurate and is portraying things correctly, which it doesn't always do. But in this movie, Alda is a school teacher who is a translator for the UN, and her town is being attacked by Bosnian soldiers led by Ratko Mladic, who is an actual real person. This is based on real events. Now, Alda was not a real person. From what I can understand, this is kind of just, she's kind of trying to play the figure of what would have happened to someone during this time. So she is a translator for the UN, which means she has certain benefits that other people aren't allowed to have. She has a badge where she can kind of go around the city and get into areas, talk to people in the UN who other people don't have access to. So essentially, the UN, they let a lot of people into this building that's supposed to be a safe building because these people from Bosnia are taking over their city, taking over their town. And then there's a lot of people outside of this building, outside the gate, that they couldn't fit into the building, who are desperately trying to get in because they're worried that they're going to be killed by these Bosnian soldiers. Now, the UN, the people who are head of the UN throughout this movie, are constantly reassuring people that everything's okay, that they have the situation under control. When the movie first starts, they say that these soldiers will not enter the town because the UN will bomb these soldiers and bomb their strategic places so that they're not able to even touch the town, which of course doesn't happen. The soldiers just kind of come into the town as easy as they will, and the UN soldiers, or the UN people who are in place, really can do nothing about it because they have no resources. They have nothing there that can help stop these soldiers. These soldiers have tanks. They have things that can definitely overpower the UN. So the UN, even though they're there to keep the peace, they're there to protect this town, they're really powerless to do anything about what is happening. So they're trying to negotiate and they're trying to resolve this issue, but at the end of the day, if the Bosnian army doesn't want to resolve the issue, they can really just do whatever they want. So the Bosnian army says that they're going to allow everyone to leave the town. They can either leave or stay. It's up to them. But if they choose to leave, they will bring buses for people and they will bus them out to like the nearest local city where they'll be safe. Now, of course, Alda doesn't believe this. She doesn't believe that this is going to happen. She thinks that they're going to just murder everyone. She's with her children and her husband, who are not part of the UN, so they are not allotted the same freedom. So at the end of the movie, when they're kind of splitting up the people who are citizens and the people who are UN, the people who are UN, they get to, obviously, they're going to be safe because they don't want to kill anyone from the UN, but the citizens are actually not necessarily safe. They could be the targets for these soldiers. These soldiers could basically do whatever they want to them. So Alda is concerned that her husband and her sons are going to be killed because they're men, and because it would seem like in war the men are the targets first. Now, these Bosnian soldiers are obsessed with whether or not these men have weapons and if they have munitions to be able to stop their soldiers. I don't know if they're actually worried about this or not, or if they're just using this as a reason to murder this entire town, this entire UN safe place. But towards the end of the movie, Alda is able to get her husband kind of UN access, kind of a UN fake passport type thing where he could be safe, but she's not able to get the same thing for her children. So he decides that he's not going to take her up on this. He's going to stay with his children, his two sons, and at the end they're split up. Alda is sent away on one bus. Her husband and her two sons are sent away on another bus, and it does not end up well for her husband and her two sons. It is very tragic what happens. I was honestly hoping that it wouldn't happen. I thought they would get out okay. I thought they would be fine, but that is not the case. I think I had hope throughout this entire movie that everything would be okay, that I kind of figured that some people in this isolated area would be killed, that they would be slaughtered, kind of like concentration camps. This to me, like, it just like screamed concentration camps. It just screamed like Hitler. It just screamed like killing off people because of who they are. And I thought that at least the two sons and the husband would survive at the end of the movie, and they would be back together, and it would be more of a happy ending, which is not what happened at all. And I was a little taken aback by that. I was very, very depressed that the ending that happened was the ending. But I think that's part of the point, is that like these type of situations, war is depressing, and it is specifically hard on civilians, on innocent civilians. Civilians aren't people who volunteer to go to war. They're not people who can fight. They're not people who are trained to do any of this, but they're the people who suffer the most. If you look at all the civilians who died in the Ukraine, there are civilians, I think, who died in Russia also. The civilians who are dying in Lebanon, there's some who are dying in Israel. It's always the civilians that get hurt the most, and it's always the civilians that are the biggest tragedy, and it's always the country that are doing the bombing and killing the civilians are always able to get out of it by just saying, oh, we thought there was a terrorist hiding there, or we thought this was a terrorist installation, or that was a building full of fighters, full of people from the military, even though it was a building full of innocent civilians and actually no one in the military. But that's just the lies that they make up so they can justify the actions that they just did. It's very sad, and it kind of shows you the truth of what actually happens in war and the people who are actually affected and how horrific something like this is. I mean, this movie just is absolutely horrific. And I mean, the pacing is very well. You're kind of on the edge of your seat throughout the entire movie of what's going to happen. Is she going to be able to get them out? Is she going to be able to save their lives? Is she going to be able to save the lives of everyone else who are in this camp? Now, obviously, she is more focused on her family, but she's also focused on saving everyone else's life too. And there's just this great pace about it where you really are on the edge of your seat the whole time. Her acting is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, she just gives a brilliant performance. I was there with her the whole step of the way. It was an emotional roller coaster going through what she had to go through with her family. Thinking that now that I have a daughter, if I had to go through something like this with my daughter, where like I didn't know if I was going to be able to save her life, if she was going to live or not, and then having to deal with the tragedy at the end, I just can't imagine. And then to realize that you're completely innocent, you're just civilians, you've done absolutely nothing to deserve any of this. A bunch of bad actors came into your town, decided to take it over during war, and like, what are you supposed to do? There's nothing that you can do. It's a completely helpless situation. It was a completely helpless situation for the UN as well. I mean, even today we have Israel firing on UN installations in Lebanon, and they're trying to justify that as well, like, oh, like it's because they're so close to the Lebanon terrorists that we're missing sometimes, and we're hitting the UN installations. It's like and it just seems like the UN. I don't know a lot about the UN. I'm not gonna lie and tell you that I've done all this research about the UN or that I've gone to school and learned a lot about the UN. I know very little about the UN. I know that I watched a couple things with the Ukraine and Russia, where Russia, it seems like, was like a head council or a big part of the UN, and every time they tried to draft some resolution against Russia was able to put an end to it because there were like some high seats in the UN. But I don't know a lot about it. It seems like they're a very slow-moving body. At least this movie would tell me that they're slow-moving, because there was immediate actions that had to be taken, immediate decisions that had to be taken, immediate, we need to answer now, we need troops now, and it just seemed like they weren't able to provide any of it because it's just a slow-moving body, and it just seems like that they were completely powerless to do anything to provide any type of help at all. And it's really sad when, as a country, you think that these are the people who are there to help you. These are the people who are there to protect you. Like, this is what you're told. This is a body that's going to come in and make sure that you're safe and that you're okay. And then none of that is actually true, and none of that can actually happen. It just seems absolutely devastating. This whole movie is absolutely, completely devastating. And, this is, a lot of people don't like to watch devastating movies like this. I think this is an important movie to watch, especially from someone like me who doesn't know that this type of thing still exists, who doesn't know that this is, like, still an issue, that this can actually still happen in the world. For me to watch something like this and have my eyes completely open and realize this is something that can happen, and this is something that's very terrible, that should never happen again, but probably will. It's mind-blowing that something like this can still be something that's going on in the world. Incredibly hard watch, but also fascinating movie. It's really amazing to learn about history. You're supposed to learn about history so that history doesn't repeat itself. But will it? I don't know. It probably will, to be honest, which is really sad. But anyway, I thought the acting was phenomenal. This movie, I believe, was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, or Best Foreign Film at the Academy Awards, but it did not win. I haven't seen any of the other movies that were nominated that year, so I don't know if it deserved to win. Based on just watching it, it's good enough to have won, I think. But I would have to watch the other movies to see what it was up against. But I thought this was really good. I thought it was... it made me feel a way that a movie hasn't made me feel in a long time. I give it a 9 out of 10. I hope you join me next time when I review a movie called Sophie Jones. Thank you. Have a great day.